Hello, everybody. I apologize for that little technical glitch right at the beginning there. I'm back in my attic today, working from home. And today we have an incredible cast of folks who are here to talk a little bit about Phase 4, expanded travel and large venues. This is a huge piece of Governor Little's plan to reopen Idaho safely. And the steps that these industries are taking to ensure the safety of our community and to keep our economy going is impressive. Today, I've got Mike Stephenson from Caldwell Transportation, Scott Terry from the Lion Boise Downtowner, Rebecca Hupp, the Executive Director of the Boise Airport, and Diane Norton from the Department of Tourism. And we are very excited to have them. But before we get there, I want to point out that the Boise Chamber is a non-for-profit organization, and we're the only 5-star accredited U.S. Chamber accredited organization in Idaho. That's important because we're highly dependent upon the investment of our members, and their support of our programming throughout the pandemic has been incredible. Today, we're lucky to have the support of longtime Chamber members, the Boise Airport and the Boise Convention and Visitors Bureau. One piece of Idaho's economy, being the third largest sector in our economy, is recreation and tourism. And the guides in our community and the folks who operate in the recreation and tourism industry know that this is a big deal being in Phase 4. So before we get to our panels, I've got a very quick video about how our guiding industry is doing everything they can to keep Idaho safe. And we'll be back on the other side.
We are the mayors of Idaho's Salmon River corridor, and we represent many of the communities that act as gateways into Idaho's most iconic outdoor adventures.
I recognize that our community is a jumping point to the incredible Sawtooth Mountains, Wood River Valley, Seven Devils, and the Frank Church River of No Return Wilderness.
Our community has a long history of working with outfitters and guides who provide high-quality experiences for their customers.
Throughout the COVID-19 epidemic, we have been in touch with the leaders in the outfitting community about their upcoming operations.
We are confident that these outfitters, many of whom live in our communities, are ready to operate.
We trust and support their plan to bring tourists into our communities responsibly.
Our communities and businesses are excited to see our outfitters and their guests return for another summer season.
We, Idaho's outfitters and guides, have a plan, we're ready to operate, and we look forward to going and exploring Idaho's most incredible places with you this summer.
And we're here with our guests, and Diane, that video speaks to me personally. As you know, and many people know, my first career, my 20-year-long career, was as an outfitter and a guide, and I'm still involved in the industry. And it's been really difficult for our business to really think through how to do this right. So outdoor activities have been rated the least risky activities for Americans to do. But what are we doing to take care of the towns and communities that might be impacted by some of these vagabond travelers that could be coming from anywhere?
I love that word, vagabond travelers. We call them visitors. But anyway, so yeah, that video is spectacular. It really showcases the whitewater that is in our state, but more importantly, it showcases how you can come and play in our outdoors. So this is really a two-way conversation that we're having. And what I mean by that is health and safety is priority, not only to our state and to all of our outfitters and to not only our tourism partners across the state, but it's also a two-way conversation that we're having with people that are emailing us, that are posting on our Facebook, that are sending us messages on Instagram or Twitter. So this is a concern all the way throughout, not only the industry, but also people that are planning to visit here. We've taken some very proactive measures, and so have the communities around the state. For instance, we're part of the Recreate Responsibly. Wow, that was tough for me to say this morning. And so that's really like guidance from the CDC. And what that is federal and state partners that want people to understand that Idahoans and also visitors that come here because of our outdoors. And we just want to get that, and we just want to engage with them and give them the messaging so that they can come here and explore our outdoors carefully. There's been some a lot of communities have been very proactive in that arena. And I'm just going to give you an example of McCall, because that's kind of like Boise's backyard playground. So early on, our smaller mountain communities, McCall and Sun Valley, came out with messaging and also came up with websites. McCall's website, protectyourmountainplayground.com, spoke to the size of the community and how small it was. And they really need people to respect their small communities. So when they come and visit, please practice these certain guidelines. So yes, it's a two-way conversation about health and safety to our consumers and to our partners across the state.
You know, I wanted to make sure I put that website up there. That's the one I caught. Mike, you're here actually taking this call from Stanley, Idaho, because Caldwell Transportation is engaging a little bit with our outfitters and guides. I know that the transportation industry has just been heavily impacted by this. So tell us where you were and tell us why you're in Stanley.
Thanks, Matt. Yeah, that was a nice video to see, because that's exactly what we're doing up here in Stanley right now. We are transporting guests to and from the river on the Middle Fork, working closely with outfitters. To be honest with you, it's really our first piece of business since this all started. We were basically shut down from about the 20th of March until just a couple weeks ago when we got up here. This is our 19th summer in Stanley doing this. You see a little bit of everything from people. Some people are wearing masks, some aren't. It seems like everybody is ready to get on the river, ready to have a great time. I know the IOGA and all the outfitters, worked extremely hard on all of their protocols. We kind of have a fumigation process for our buses before and after we take groups to the river. I'm hearing from outfitters that they are, they may have had some cancellations when this first started, but I believe that they are filling their trips throughout the summer with people that are just excited to get back to traveling and seeing this beautiful area up here.
Mike, will you speak a little bit to that process that you have to take now in order to clean your buses and make sure that they're safe for the next round of passengers? How much more and what new steps are you taking to ensure the safety of the folks you're moving?
We're wiping stuff down after every trip. With the heat, the heat supposedly helps. We're running with our windows down when possible. That was a little hard yesterday when it was snowing like crazy up here. But we're using some different sorts of spray where high traffic areas where people may touch, handrails getting on the bus. Different outfitters are, some outfitters are requiring masks. Our drivers are wearing masks if outfitters want them to. Just trying to clean when possible, and obviously before and after every trip.
Rebecca, the Boise Airport has been kind of our valley's little gem. It's been growing at an incredible rate, the number of passengers, and increasing new flights on a regular basis. And it feels like we went a little bit backwards over the last few months. Tell us where we're at.
Well, I think a little bit might be the understatement of the week there. Just to put it in perspective, the Boise Airport has grown about 50% in the last 5 years in terms of passenger enplanements. And 2020 was off to a great start. We were up 5% in terms of passenger enplanements in January, up another 9% in February. And even the first couple of weeks of March were very strong, but we ended up finishing March down 49%. And again, that's really a reflection of the fact that the first 2 weeks were so strong. And then in April, record low of probably a 94% decrease in passenger travel. And we are starting to see that rebound. And I think that Boise is rebounding perhaps faster than some other places across the country that we're seeing. But it's still, it's a far cry from where we were and really where we had expected to be.
Do you see, are things beginning to come roaring back this month? How much improvement are we seeing this month and moving, at least in terms of schedule moving forward?
I appreciate your optimism. Roaring back might be a little bit overly optimistic, but I would say we are seeing definite increases. So to put things in perspective, on a normal day, we would see about 7,000 passengers go through the checkpoint. At our low point in late March and early April, we were seeing about 300 passengers a day. So just a dramatic, catastrophic decrease. Today, we're back up to about 1,500 to 2,000 passengers per day through the checkpoint. And anecdotally, what I'm hearing from our airlines and from our concessionaires, our tenants, is that Boise is seeing a more rapid increase than what they've seen in other places. So, it's hard to be excited about only being down about 60%, but when your peers are down 80%, I think we're definitely moving in the right direction.
Scott, a very similar question. First, thanks for being here. And I know that the hotel and vacation lodging industry is also really taken a decrease in usage, and your hit has been very big. Tell us what happened, and tell us if your bookings are looking better for the remainder of the summer, and where your hotel is at.
Certainly. Thank you for having me, Matt. Our numbers reflect similar to what the airport is seeing, that in 2019, we had a banner year, and 2020 started out with a bang, and then we hit April. April has been the worst record month of tracking. We use a system called Smith Travel, and since 1988, it was the worst month ever on record. Revenues fell 82.4%, and here in Boise, our occupancies were down 67.4%. So really nowhere to go but up from there. Some hotels were running in the teens from an occupancy standpoint. But as for moving forward, things are definitely improving. With us moving to phase 4 has certainly been a driving factor. That much of our business has been drive-in or transient leisure, very last minute, 7-day or less booking window with very high demand on the weekends. And a lot of that weekend demand is being driven by the sports or the baseball teams. You have parents that have paid for kids to be a part of a team, and they're not able to play in their own state, so they're looking for tournaments. And Boise and Meridian have been very open about having those tournaments move forward, and that's caused some weekend influx for us here. As for midweek, the corporate travel has been down tremendously over what we've been experiencing, and that from a group standpoint, we're getting the sports teams, and then the wedding market is still remaining consistent, but corporate and association just is a little or non-existent right now. We're focusing on the drive-in markets, and recently we opened up our pool and our exercise room, and are starting to bring back some of our furloughed team members because the occupancy is starting to improve, and we're optimistic there.
Diane, what Scott was just talking about has a impact on the Idaho tourism budget. a lot of the Idaho tourism budget is from a heads and beds tax that helps you promote our state all over the country, and you're responsible for educating people on why Idaho is such an incredible place to come. How will this impact your budget? And then on top of that, how are you pivoting to make sure that we educate our communities about what needs to happen to keep that industry strong and to educate visitors on what it's going to take to keep us safe?
Yeah, and you're correct, Matt. We are funded by a 2% dedicated bed tax, and that is paid for by VRBOs, Airbnbs, private campgrounds, hotels, motels around the state. And we kept monitoring that. We monitor it every month anyway, but especially with COVID. And so what we started to notice was a decline starting in April, which would have been reflected for March bed tax collections. And then in May, we just got our bed tax collection report. So we were down about 76% versus May of last year. The thing to keep in mind is for the last 5 years, we have had double-digit growth of bed tax collections. So to put that into perspective, we were running in January and February about anywhere from 15 to 18% over last year. So even with this decline of our bed tax collections in May, which was 76% down from the previous year, overall our growth is at 0.37%, which is we're not at the year end yet. We haven't gone to the finish line because June 30th is the finish line. But what can happen with our bed tax collections is we can roll those over into next year. So for instance, when I say we can roll that over, is what I mean is we had, when COVID-19 hit and the stay-at-home order was issued, we paused all of our marketing. And what we did is we really focused on making sure that we messaged people who were looking for vacation ideas. So what I mean by that is we went into the whole campaign of plan now, play later, see you soon in Idaho. Our entire call to action was order a travel guide. We also used our email database as our benchmark to make sure that we were always communicating with our consumers. And then what we did, to address your question, Matt, about the industry, we pivoted with our industry as well. And so we started having coffee talks on every Thursday morning. And what we did is we brought in experts from the field on tourism, walking us through the steps, what the sentiment was, and how to move forward post-COVID, even though we're still in COVID, but when your government is open, how you pivot to make sure your marketing syncs and also addresses the safety issue, the health issue, et cetera. So there's a couple of things that we've been very proactive in, and we've seen some really great growth in. And I'm just going to share you a couple of different stats. When I talked about how we pivoted our marketing from proactive to reactive, and proactive at the same time. So the plan now, play later, and the redirection was to our travel guide and our travel guide orders. So from a time frame from last year, from January 1st to May 31st, we saw an increase for mail orders for our travel guide specifically increased 55%. And then our digital guide increased 235%. So people were very engaged with our content.
So did you pivot to do anything to help the local communities get up to speed with strategies to keep themselves safe as they really ramp up for tourism? Part of the concern the governor had, and I think it was a valuable concern, was you've got rural communities that really don't have access to ICU beds. So this entire shutdown has been about the health and safety of our community because of the few ICU beds that are available around the state. And was tourism involved in that at all, or has that really come from the governor's office?
Well, that really came from the governor's office, but what we did is we took exactly what he was saying, and then we applied it through our communities. So what I mean by that is our communities have the opportunity to apply for a travel grant. And the Idaho Travel Council is an 8-member organization that is appointed by the governor. So where we really were proactive is through our Idaho Travel Council, and we also invited the communities in through our coffee talks, and also specifically through our Idaho Travel Council meetings, invited the communities in and saying, this is what we are doing. We want you to mimic what we are doing, because we don't want you to continue marketing and engaging people to come to visit Idaho. We want you to pause your marketing and pivot with us. So it was a statewide process that we went through, but we almost treated it like a triage.
Right.
You know, first we had to identify, okay, you know, where are the points of contact, and how do we assimilate this and move forward? So it was all through this. It was statewide initiative, and we had to make sure, and we wanted to make sure our grantees understood what we were doing, so that they were in step and in sync with what our messaging was.
You know, Mike, I don't think people realize how diverse your portfolio is at Caldwell Transportation, but you also provide school busing. And that's an area that obviously has been tremendously impacted. What are you doing to work with the schools? Where are you at with that? And do you have a plan for the fall for school busing?
You know, we're working closely with all of our individual school districts that we provide service for, coming up with a reopening plan. What does that look like? And, you know, it's an ongoing discussion. You know, similar to what we're doing now with the fumigating and, the spraying and mask. You know, our kids going to be required to wear masks. You know, most of those decisions are going to be based on individual school districts, and we're working closely with them, to work on their reopening plans. You know, the tough thing, and Rebecca can speak to this, when you talk about social distancing, that's hard to do on an airplane and a school bus. So, you know, we're not exactly sure what that looks like, but you know, each individual district's working on their reopening plans, and we're all just hoping that we're back to normal when school starts and we can put this thing behind us.
Yeah, you know, and hoping that the predictions for a vaccine come quickly. Rebecca, the airlines are a classic example of a group of organizations that are really having to take extraordinary efforts to ensure that their passengers are safe. I read yesterday that American Airlines removed somebody from a flight because they refused to wear a mask. And some of these policies that are going in place are really rigid for the safety of passengers. Can you tell us what the airport and some of the airlines are doing to ensure the safety of passengers?
Well, we've been really focused on making sure that our airport is clean. And I have to give a huge shout out to our employees, because one of the things that people love most about the Boise Airport is just how meticulously our team keeps it. And, you know, we have started increased cleaning of all of the high touch places, such as, you know, elevator buttons, all the things, doorknobs, things people are touching all the time. And so increased cleaning. We also have removed some of the seats from the gate hold room areas, because there aren't as many passengers, so we don't need as many seats. And that really allows our team to focus on cleaning what's there, as they're wiping down everything from the free charging cords where people can charge their cell phones. They're wiping those down daily. We've also put up sneeze guards at all of the ticket counter stations and rental car stations. TSA has put up sneeze guards as well. Employees are all wearing masks. And we've also added some floor decals. So those are some of the changes that you're seeing in the terminal building. And the airlines, you're absolutely right that they are being very rigid in their requirement of passengers wearing masks. And that's new. It wasn't initially a requirement, but as we've gone through the COVID progression, we've seen airlines pivot to requiring masks so people do feel safe. One of the things that they're doing is leaving some of the seats empty. And so I don't know that that's going to be a long-term solution, because that certainly impacts the viability of different flights, but it is something that they're doing currently.
You know, Scott, the hotel and Airbnb and vacation rentals are considered, there's still risk associated with the hotels, but being able to have your own room and close the door behind you and stay away from folks is considered a lower risk activity for during this pandemic. What are you all doing to make sure that you're stepping up your sanitation procedures? And then a follow-up question on that is, have you changed how you do room service, or are you finding other ways to help people get food as well as stay safe in their room?
Sure. Well, the first and foremost, we're working hard to stay up to date to what the directions are through different agencies. We're using the website of Idaho Rebound. The Boise Center has been very helpful with the processes and procedures that they're putting in place, as well as accessing the U.S. Travel Association, National Restaurant Association, and the Red Line brand information. In our hotel, we're focusing, as the airport is, on common touch points, looking at more often cleaning the surfaces at the front office, the food and beverage, restroom areas, lobby carts, door handles, elevator buttons. We have sanitizing stations all throughout the property, and just encouraging folks to utilize those. We're partnering with our supply companies to replenish high demand items for us to prepare for what may come forward, and always handling our food with best practices. Specifically in housekeeping, we're using hospital grade disinfectants when cleaning the rooms, and focusing on items in the rooms that do have a lot of touch points to them: remote controls, telephones, door handles, and then also the desk area. From a front office standpoint, we've shifted our desk where the computers are back from the normal area to facilitate the social distancing with our guests and their interactions. We also use a sanitizer solution on our keys, as well as the pens that are used at the desk. And we too have installed the floor decals and to encourage people to practice the social distancing. Associates, we're monitoring the health of our associates carefully, making sure that they have gloves and masks to use. That also, if someone is sick at their home or if they're not feeling well, to stay home. And we have signs encouraging guests to follow the CDC suggestions throughout the property.
Scott, is there, do you feel pressure from either your branch or from the industry to make sure that folks are wearing masks, particularly your customers, or are you still leaving that as an option for people?
It's an option for folks, and that's where the social distancing comes into play. That we want people to feel that they're amongst friends when they come to our hotel, and we deal with both sides of that spectrum. Some people are extremely nervous about it, and other people look upon it as just somebody having the flu. So it's trying to anticipate the needs of those and trying to make everyone at ease that comes in and stays with us.
Scott, a follow-up question from the audience. You can see it. I just put up. You know, you have conference rooms. I've been to numerous events at your hotel, and how are you handling that? Are those available right now, or are you in what position are you in?
Sure. We actually had our first event earlier this week that we've reduced our capacities and just what we do in those spaces. That most of them are reduced by either a quarter or by down to 1/3. So that way we can do the social distancing within them. And then off from the food standpoint, that we are doing plated meals, box lunches, that type of thing. And a lot of that too is working with the client and the people that are planning the events as what it is that they're looking for. That we want to start with the most aggressive of protecting the people that are traveling, and then making sure that the client is comfortable with what we're doing, and then listen to what they have to say.
Well, so we've looked back. We know that this pandemic has been terrible. And now let's look forward. I mean, Diane, you're the voice of Idaho tourism. What are some positive things you're seeing, and what's coming down the pike that you feel really positive about and you're feeling like is a sign that tourism is on a good footing?
Well, first of all, there's businesses are opening, which is, we need that for tourism. That's our product. And second of all, I've spent quite a bit of time reaching out to the different destination marketing organizations around the state, and also individual businesses, asking them to trying to get a temperature of what's going on and how they're doing with bookings. And I'm receiving some really good information. There was one particular lodging component out in Eastern Idaho that said that she was so thankful because she was 70% booked for June. And so we're hearing different, it's different scenarios around the state, but we're feeling that our product is resonating with people that want to explore outdoors. And but the main thing is we're also trying to make sure that we educate our traveling public of what they need to anticipate and what they need to know before they come here. So yesterday we just traveled on visitidaho.org. We just posted a travel tip. And what it does is it takes the traveler through the process of make sure, these are like check blanks. Make sure that you bring a mask. Make sure that you call in advance to make sure that your hotel or your lodging or their attraction is open. So, but we have been seeing different scenarios around the state where we've seen really strong response. We're also seeing our shoulder season fall. A lot of our lodging partners are saying fall looks very strong for them, August and September. So those are the glimmers that we are seeing. And as we move forward, we're really keeping our ears on the pulse of what's happening and our eyes open, because what we want to make sure is that if there's something that they see out there, that we can be proactive and get ahead of it. I know that we don't have a crystal ball. I wish we all did. That would be just awesome. But I really feel that we're going in a good direction. And just from what Rebecca said, they're seeing the uptick in airfare service. We are hopeful that through our fall campaign, we're going to start talking about road trips to Idaho. And I think we're very hopeful that number one, all of our research and all the people that we've had our coffee talks with said that, Idaho is prime for people visiting because we have an offering of outdoor product that a lot of surrounding states do not. And also we have the low population.
One of the challenges the industry's seen, and maybe you can speak to this just in general terms, is folks are amped up to get outside and go stay in new places. But I've got some friends that in the last couple of days have been told they need to quarantine for 14 days, and that means that their trip is off. Have you heard, and Scott, this could be for you as well, have you heard if there's any creativity and if hotels and our tourism industry are being lenient to people who kind of get saddled with a COVID quarantine?
I can't answer that question because I think every hotel is kind of take it case by case.
Yeah. Scott, what do you think?
It's on an individual basis. I mean, from a group standpoint and from a meeting standpoint, we've had a lot of people that have postponed events, and that's really what we're encouraging people to do, is to postpone it rather than cancel it. And a lot of the folks have followed that path.
Right.
As for somebody who is in Boise and then we find out that they have come down with COVID, that we have plans in place with how we'll take care of cleaning that room and isolating that room, and then also how we'll handle that room. We have a company that we utilize that will come in and clean the facility and make sure that we're good, and then we'll leave that room vacant for a couple of days just as an insurance that we're doing our best to make that ready for the next client.
Mike, you in your industry in particular is highly reliant upon custom programming, whether it be a corporate trip or other things. And those still seem to be a little bit up in the air, but how is your industry pivoting, and where do you see the industry heading moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, we've pretty much been shut down, since the end of March. We have 25 motor coaches and haven't moved one for 2.5 months. We've had numerous things that have been canceled. Like I said before, we're ready to get back to work. We're excited, and I think, I think this fall you're going to see things turn around, and we're just looking forward to get back to school and hauling people wherever they need to go, whether that be athletic teams. The sad thing about this is you look at, Northwest Nazarene, College of Idaho, Boise State. All those kids lost out on sport, all of their athletic trips in the spring, and I just hope we're up and going in the fall and we're back to normal.
Yeah, probably one of the toughest things to watch has been graduation. I've got a number of old college roommates that their kids graduated this year and are headed off to college. At least they plan to, but college was or high school graduations were canceled. Rebecca, speaking of cancellations, you had flights that have been direct flights in Boise that because the airlines were hit so hard by this, they were basically eliminated from the schedule. Do you have a timeline of anything coming back? Can you give us some hope as to flights returning to the Boise Airport?
Absolutely. And as I mentioned, we did see airlines cancel initially a significant number of flights, and it felt like it was changing on a daily basis. That said, we are seeing flights return. The 4 destinations that we currently do not have nonstop service to that we had service previously are Spokane, Minneapolis, Sacramento, and Houston. And those will all be coming back over the summer. Spokane is returning on Alaska on July 1. Minneapolis service on Delta will be returning on July 3rd. Sacramento, also Alaska, will be returning on August 1st. And then on August 3rd, we'll see United reintroduce the Houston route. So we are expecting all of those destinations to come back. Of course, everything is subject to change, as I'm sure you know, based on demand and airline schedules. But what we're hearing is that people are returning to travel, and we are starting to see the flights come back. So we do have a glimmer of hope.
Well, that's exciting. And I just want to put this up one more time to kind of point out that in order for this to work and in order for our hospitals not to get overrun, because that's what this entire process is about, businesses just need to be responsible and really encourage responsible behavior from their employees and from their patrons. You can go online and take the One Idaho Pledge, which is essentially a pledge that implies that you'll demonstrate individual responsibility, or as a business that you're going to follow guidelines that have been put out by the CDC. I know that tourism is critical to Idaho. And so before we go, Diane, do you have anything else you want to add to this conversation so people know that we're open for business?
I challenge everyone in Idaho to visit their own backyard and take a vacation in their own backyard. Whether it's a whitewater rafting trip, whether it's a road trip someplace they haven't explored for a while, I really challenge every single Idahoan to get out there and take a road trip in Idaho.
Mike, any closing comments?
No, I appreciate you having me on. I'm just excited to get this thing, get everything back open and going, and looking forward to fall, and just looking forward to getting back up and running.
Scott, there's one question I didn't ask you that I do want to close, and that is, where do you see the industry heading on the hotel and vacation rental side? What do you see when you look into your crystal ball?
Yeah, I wish I had that crystal ball, but the hospitality industry will bounce back. It's just a question of how long it's going to take us and what that's going to look like between now and then. But in the meantime, it's vital that we do all we can to make our employees and our guests feel as comfortable and safe as possible in traveling. And we need to have the economy remain open and look for return of corporate business to the Boise area. That I see from an event standpoint that what's going to happen is you're going to have hybrid meetings where you'll have a core group of people that will go there and attend the meeting, and then they'll do a video conference so other people can attend it so that you can still get the same results, but not have the numbers that attend the meeting. But the estimates, I guess, in looking at occupancy for the U.S. for the remainder and looking at it as a whole, typically the hotels run about 70% occupancy. They're estimating that we're going to be down about 45% once the year does settle itself as compared to where we were in the fantastic year of 2019. So I'm optimistic, but it'll certainly be an uphill challenge for hospitality to move things forward.
And Rebecca, you get the last word. What do you think? What last bits of advice can you give to the public so that you can get them into the airport?
Well, I think the key is to know before you go. And I think that was always true prior to COVID, and it's probably more applicable today. make sure that you have a mask, because every place has different rules and different standards. So Idaho is open, but other states are not. So make sure that you're really checking prior to departure, so you know what the expectations are at your destination.
And Diane, you forgot to mention climbing, so I'll do that for you.
Okay.
I want to thank Mike and Scott and Rebecca and Diane. I appreciate you having this conversation. I know it's tough on your industries right now, and the Boise Chamber is we're truly honored to have experts like you that are willing to talk to us about issues and present information to the public. And last but not least, I want to thank the Boise Airport and the Boise Conventioners and Visitors Bureau for being so supportive of this program, for allowing us to have the conversation. And for those of you that are listening, if you have any questions about Phase 4 or any of the guidance that have been put out by the governor, please reach out to me or to the Boise Chamber. We're happy to help as best we can. And again, thank you and we'll see you all later.
Thank you.
Thank you.